The cameras are ready. The microphones are ready. Let's get ready for Why Fight!
Hello and welcome to Why Fight with myself, Darren Barker, and Ryan Pickard. And today's guest is the legend, the great MC Michael Buffer.
The voice.
Hall of
Famer.
The man that created Let's Get Ready to Rumble. What a guest, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a part. Well, he kind of is a part of every boxer's dream. Like, if you're a boxer, you're watching boxing on TV, and you're striving to be those fighters that are performing, trying to win world titles. And Michael Buffer is the person you want to be announced by, and lucky enough for you, you were.
Yeah, it wasn't the announcing that I was buzzing with. It was the last part that I always wanted to hear. It was Michael Buffer say, "and the new."
Yeah.
That was special. But yeah, loads of great stories from Michael. I mean, he spent time with Muhammad Ali, amongst other great fighters, Mike Tyson, etc. He tells us all about those fighters, some amazing stories, the journeys he's been on,
and how he started as a boxing fan,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how that's where it all came from. Announcing people like Mike Tyson at Madison Square Garden,
and still going. He's still going strong. There's more to come from Michael Buffer, which is great for us as fans and spectators, but for young fighters coming through. So don't miss this episode with Michael Buffer. It is one not to be missed.
Yeah, the most successful ring announcer of all time,
without a doubt. Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. We know you're a busy man. And by the way, we're honoured because this is our maiden podcast. This is the first one. So
God.
We've got a legend.
There's
pressure.
a word for this. I don't want, it's something about maiden. Oh, never mind.
guest number one anyway.
Guest number one. Well, look, I think mine and Ryan's passion for doing this is because we hear of so many people, but what we find fascinating is what makes that person great. What is that fight within? What is that desire to be the best at what they do? And you certainly are the best at what you do. But with every story, there comes a beginning. So let's take it right back to the start. Where you brought up, how was your upbringing? Paint us a picture.
Well, I'm a bit of an old geezer, so I've been around since like black and white TV in the 50s and everything. And I just started watching it was called the Friday night fights, and then the Saturday night back in the 50s when I was a kid. And I was a big fan of Sugar Ray Robinson when he was the greatest, pound for pound, the greatest ever, no doubt about that. And then I became a fan of Floyd Patterson because he was like this underdog that weighed 189 pounds soaking wet, was heavyweight champion, and lost to Sonny Liston. My heart was broken. And I thought for sure he would win the rematch just like he did against Johansson. And that didn't happen. But I can remember we used to have a thing when you've done something bad in high school, you had detention. And I had to go sit in the vice principal's office for an hour after school and miss the bus and walk home and that sort of thing. So I would watch the clock ticking off each way, and I would imagine myself fighting Gene Fulmer, who was an opponent of Sugar Ray Robinson. So I would sit there and kill time, and inside my head saying, and Buffer comes out and he throws a left and a right, and and I'd watch the clock at 3 minutes, and that's the end of round 2, and that's how I would kill time. Just imagine myself being in the ring against these guys that beat my favorite Sugar Ray Robinson. And I was just a boxing fan. And then in 1960, the Olympics, there was this fighter named Cassius Marcellus Clay that just captured everybody's heart and attention with the victory in Rome in the Olympics. And I became this big fan of who later became, of course, Muhammad Ali, and just followed boxing. And I've just always been a fan.
So, wow. So if it wasn't for that detention you got at school, what you're saying is really, in a way, that was the kind of beginnings of you kind of narrating through a fight, or even introducing that. That was the beginning.
Yeah, maybe that's an interesting. I never thought about being a ring announcer. I never thought about actually putting on gloves or any of that stuff. But I did box a little bit in the Army, but you had to stay in shape, and I was a little bit too
Yeah.
lazy to do that.
But you were
when I say
you-
boxing, you wore headgear and everything. And,
Yeah. But you were creatively kind of going through a fight in your mind, and then you become an announcer, which you announce the fights. And
I as a kid, I used to always love to play around with that tape recorder. Back then, it was reel to reel. You had a big box of a tape recorder, and I would do different voices as a kid and have a lot of fun with it. And I was in the Army for 3 years. When I got out, I was a car salesman, and then somehow stumbled into having an agent ask me, what size do I wear, and what are you doing tomorrow? I was in a fashion show, and I started working as a model.
Okay.
When I was already in my early 30s. And I said, well, this is great. I haven't had a real job since. And that was like in the middle 70s. And I started doing commercials, speaking parts in commercials. I would do modeling jobs and, that were involved with the commercials. And they would say, well, hey, maybe you could, because first of all, ad agencies, and they never want to use models as actors because they're just models and they're pretty face, you can't speak. But I wasn't one of those kid models. I was already in my 30s, and kind of started getting speaking parts and doing commercials, and one thing led to another, and I got my foot in the door in Atlantic City. But let me back up a little bit. In the early 70s, after Muhammad Ali lost to Ken Norton, he opened up a training camp, a secluded training camp in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania. And that was about a 90-minute ride for me from where I lived outside of Philadelphia. And I used to drive up there as a fanboy. And just back then, everybody thought Ali was through. He didn't have a lot of visitors, and Angelo Dundee and Drew Bundini Brown would be there, and I would just go and hang out. And I remember once I took all the covers off of my boxing magazines. Before the internet, we used to have boxing magazines, right? Yeah. And I took like 20 of them, all these, because Ali in his gym would have had pictures and everything. So I brought all these, and I said, maybe you'd like to stick these all on. And I remember the two of us putting up with Scotch tape and a stapler and everything, all these magazine covers in the gym. And without any, I didn't even want to talk to the champ. I just sort of hang out, and I keep my mouth shut. And I was in the presence of greatness, and I was his fan. And occasionally he would be like, you want to stay for dinner? And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like living large.
So how old would you have been then?
Late 20s.
And you wasn't involved in boxing at the time?
Nothing at all.
Wow.
In boxing, yeah. And I got to know Muhammad Ali, and when he fought Frazier for the rematch in Madison Square Garden, he gave me a ticket, and I took the train to New York and sat up in the top of the Madison Square Garden and saw that fight.
Did you box yourself? Did you train like before?
The only boxing I did was very limited with headgear in the Army, and I wasn't too good because as Mr. Baker Barker can tell you.
We'll definitely go on to that.
Well, no, we're not going to go there. You got to stay quite fit just to get past 60 seconds, let alone 3 minutes or 2 minutes in amateur boxing.
So you love to watch it, but you weren't that captivated by actually doing it.
Yeah. So a lot of boxing started happening in Atlantic City with the casinos and everything. And in the 1982, I got my foot in the door and got to announce a fight there, and I was really, really dreadful. Really bad, yeah.
Really? What?
Terrible. That was terrible. And I wasn't getting nobody would give me any help. They handed me the scorecards, and I'm like, what? This is They had even rounds in the middle. You had, a scorecard, one fighter here, one fighter there, and then even rounds in the middle, like 3 columns. And I'm trying to read the scorecard, and I'm asking Larry Hazard was one of the referees, and he just leave me alone, man. I don't know who you are. It was dreadful.
So what? It was just
really bad.
it was just a paid opportunity that you
Yeah,
fancy doing
yeah.
some ring announcing and
Anyway, the one thing I really do remember, besides being awful, was that back then we had the state commission, and everybody got paid cash. The fighters, the undercard guys, and of course the main event fighters would, they had management and got checks. But all the corner men and everything had to line up, single file, walk through a room, and they had a guy there, and the name doesn't make any difference. He's passed away, God bless him. And you get paid cash. He'd say, hey, he had a list, he'd pay you cash. And I was supposed to get $150. The guy hands me $120. And I go, my first time doing this. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to get, and the guy next to me goes, gives me one of these, like, shut the front door, and because he was taking his cut out of everybody's pay. I mean, this guy walked away with a few grand every night, and he was a supervisor. So that's
But you say
that
it
probably
was-
was a better job than being a ring announcer.
But you say it was that bad. You said you did a bad job. So
Yeah, bad.
how did it progress from that? Did you get asked
Okay.
again, or did you then have dreams of becoming the MC?
That was actually in November of 1982, okay? And I was like, well, thanks, kid. That was bad. And I had it was on TV. I had recorded it. I went home. I looked at it. I said, oh, man, this is dreadful. But the benefit of looking at yourself on TV is you can make yourself better.
Yeah.
I still do that. I still do that today.
Do you really?
I will still look at something and say, oh, whoa, just don't do that. Or through the years, change things. I'll tell you.
So what was it that looked bad? Like, explain how kind of not doing it good felt. Like what?
Little things, enunciation. Let me give you an example. Americans tend to say 20, like almost like you're saying it with a couple of N's instead of 20. And when you're speaking on a PA system, it sounds a lot better to say, he has 23 wins instead of 23 wins, And so just little...
How good is that, though? Just hearing that little bit there.
just put little things like that, And I'm from Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, we have an accent, and I had to work on my accent, and
So you analyze yourself. You
oh,
watched
yeah,
yourself,
sure.
and you
I always
analyze.
try to improve. Let me give you an example of something. Just had my 15th wedding anniversary, and Christine and I have been together for 19 years. And when we went to the fights, I used to say, and this is when I'm established, everything, but I used to say, and now for the thousands in attendance and the millions around, and I would go, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to. And so Christine said, this is like, now she's never even been to a fight before in her life.
Yeah.
And she said, you should say, ladies and gentlemen. And she was right. I mean, you just never know where you're going to get a tip for something. Just like if you look a lot of the early days when I started saying, let's get ready to rumble, I would say, let's get ready to rumble, 12 rounds of boxing for the heavyweight. Because I wasn't trying to bring attention to myself. I was trying to set up the fighters' introductions. And that came about because when you look at a lot of these older fights, the ring announcers, especially in America, and then they started doing it here and everywhere else, were introducing all their buddies on the commission. The chairman, the 5 commissioners, the supervisor, 4 doctors, and then if you had a WBA, then their supervisor, their president, and you were killing the crowd, man. You go to a Major League Baseball game or NFL game, or here when you have football, they don't introduce the commission and all that, and like if it's an NFL game. And in New York, the president of the NFL, they introduce the players, the stars of the show. So in boxing, in the electronic age, it's all the music, the stars come out, the big fight, the main event, everybody's excited. And then the ring announcer was killing the crowd by introducing 19 frigging people before the fighters.
Yeah.
And you've just wiped out the crowd. Like, oh, man, everybody's excited. They're cheering. The music stops. He kills the crowd. So I wanted a hook that we would introduce the fighters. And there's this famous line from auto racing, "Gentlemen, start your engines." Boom, you know, like, oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I wanted that's something that would let you know you're going to meet the stars of the show. So to get back to like how I used to say, "Let's get ready to rumble," but I would keep on going. I met a guy named Jody Burry, who was a singer in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Used to be the opening act for the great Ella Fitzgerald when supper clubs were really big back then. And he was like a Mr. Show Business guy. I met him in L.A., and he had like a Clark Gable mustache and his own special jewelry and cufflinks and, you know, just this really cool guy. And he was a fight fan. And he had a pompadour, and he used to talk like this, you know, that Hollywood type of style. And so we were out and drinking champagne, and he's really like half kicked in the ass. And he says, "You know, when you say, 'let's get ready to rumble,' shut the fuck up." I'm like, I don't know if I can say that or not on your blog.
Of course you can. You're Michael Buffer.
And I'm, "Jody, what do you mean?" He said, "People want to react." And it's just like when Christine gave me that little tip about, say, "Ladies and gentlemen," there's like a little something that you add there. And that was like great advice. So I started to say, "Let's get ready to rumble." And then I would shut the heck up.
Give space. Yeah.
And there was a reaction from the crowd because they were like, "Yeah." And that meant the fighters, the stars of the show, they're going to get that energy too. So it was really work. Sometimes you get great advice from out of nowhere.
And goosebumps even thinking about that.
And with that, like you spoke about the motor racing thing, and I think start your engines. Was there anyone you knew of that had kind of trademarked their phrase before you did? Was there an inspiration to do that? Like, who gave you that idea?
No, there wasn't. I guess I've sort of started a whole landslide now. Everybody has to have, it's not just the catchphrase. People are doing entire acts, like before they introduce the fighters.
Yeah.
But it's, it just became a thing now. People are saying, "It's time to throw leather," or whatever they're going to say,
But what gave you the idea to kind of trademark that? Like, how did that come along?
It started to pop up in. I remember when Tyson fought Michael Spinks in whatever that was, 89 or 90 or something, and the Philadelphia Daily News had a whole headline that said, "Let's get ready to rumble." I'm thinking like,
that's mine.
This phrase is mine, and it's getting to be, And I can remember when I first started to say it, guys were saying, "Hey, let's get ready to rumble stuff, man. That sucks. What are you doing?" The old timers, "What are you doing, pal?" Yeah, that doesn't play. Just announce the fighters, whatever, So and now it's becoming a phrase. And a used car dealer is doing a radio ad, and he says, "Hey, get ready to rumble for a knockout deal." And I'm like, "Whoa, man, this is like." So I trademarked it legally, registered, own it.
I didn't know that was
UK,
possible.
in Australia, in America, it's.
It's not just a phrase.
Sorry,
it's not just a phrase. It's a drink, as you can see here.
Let's get ready to rumble. Okay,
in all good retailers across the country. It's very nice, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm flying anyway.
So you talk about you had heroes as far as boxers were concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Ali, obviously, I think reigns up there with most being their heroes. My dad was lucky enough to meet him. But aside from the boxers, was there any ring announcers, not just in boxing but in other sports, that you looked up to and thought, I aspire to be as good as them?
Or even like an actor, or like, because it feels like there's something movie-like that may have inspired you.
Yeah, there is. It's like you're a character, I guess. Yeah.
It's funny because there sort of was like a standard for like movies but remember when we used to watch cartoons as kids? I say we because I know you guys, we all watch cartoons as kids. And there was that in the old Warner Brothers cartoons with Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. They would have a fight scene, and they would always imitate like the classic New York Madison Square Garden type of guy that would say, Introducing, weighing in at 222 pounds, the champion of the world. You know, and that was like the standard that there wasn't, that you always thought of as a ring announcer, and for boxing.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't work if for tennis. And wearing the white shorts, you know, I mean, it just fit boxing, that New York type of accent,
prize fighting kind of.
And so there wasn't, other than that caricature type thing, there wasn't anything to aspire to other than kind of like want to do my own thing. And so I just stayed with it. And like after that disaster, I finally got another chance because I actually got my foot in the door again, like about 6 months later, and it was in Atlantic City, and fixed what I thought were a lot of mistakes that I had to do. Still, I cringe when I look at it.
But that disaster you talk about, there must have been something about that experience that made you come back for more. Like, what was it? Getting in the ring,
redemption,
being the center of attention. What was it?
I love the sport.
Yeah,
it wasn't. I didn't want to be the center of attention. If I wanted to be the center of attention, I would have been saying, "Let's get ready to rumble." Bigger from the beginning, not just like, let's get ready to rumble 12 rounds of boxing. I was
But you've become the center of attention.
without even knowing it. You are.
Well, that's probably right. I mean, I enjoyed what I was doing, and I was part of something that, hey, listen, I mean, I was getting to sit at ringside when I couldn't even afford to sit in the bleachers, years ago. So
there was that was part of that. You were up close and personal to everything.
Right,
You were involved.
I was a part of it, and I loved it. And I was meeting heroes, as a fan, and just it was great.
And what was exciting in life before that? You spoke about doing commercials. I'd like to know if you know any commercials that you did, by the way, because I want to look them up. But what did you do before becoming a ring announcer that was exciting? Was there anything kind of floating your boat that you could have gone that way or that way, or was it just you just fell into kind of being on camera because of the modelling?
You as a Bond.
Pardon me?
I can imagine you as a Bond,
There's
007.
Bond villain.
Yeah, Bond villain.
Occasionally people will say, it'll pop up on Twitter or something like, like a James Bond thing, and I'll reply with, James Bond's granddad, But, there was a thing where when I did a Mike Tyson fight in Tokyo, and the Japanese, somebody from the Japanese press referred to me as the 007 of boxing. I thought, that's pretty cool. I like that, So,
but what
is flattering?
So was there anything before you found your flow in what you do that was exciting you before that? Was there, as a youngster, was there a sport that you did that lit you up, or did, like you said, you played with the sound recorder? Like, were you like mulling over the idea of being an actor? Was that kind of a dream somewhere? Was there a dream going on?
I hate to admit it and actually say it and everything, but I'm a pretty lazy guy. I guess I have some ambition, but I don't apply it to going out and knocking on doors or making up resumes. And I just I had opportunities to get into acting, but that's an awful lot of work. I've done a lot of films and everything, and I thought, man, I hate to have to do this every day. Get up at 4 a.m. and go to makeup and all that. So when I was modeling, I had offers to go see agents in New York, and you'd be great in soap operas. And I'm like, yeah, but that's an awful lot of work. But I'm comfortable with what I'm doing.
So you're more like you're a sprint. You on the night of the fight.
I'm sort of a layback type of guy, and
But I mean, on the day of the fight, what you do is you nail it on the day rather than a big build up and a lot of hard work going into it. You're like, on the day you're going to be super pristine.
I'll do all
and get
my
it
notes
bang
and
on,
everything the day of.
I mean, even the way you look, I can tell that You know, you're in the zone.
Well,
you know what I mean?
knew it'd be on camera, so I wanted to keep up the.
I
thought you
can
slept like that.
I could imagine you go to bed like that. Yeah. I reckon you're always dressed pristine.
Telling me I look like I slept today. What are you saying here? Oh,
The best dressed sleeper in the world. So there's always been that drive, that ambition, I guess, to be the best at what you do. Moving forward a little bit, I guess, what does winning to you look like? What is it that after a show, I guess you want a flawless performance, but what is it what will after a show look like to you? A successful evening look like?
I've always felt as though when there's a big fight or some of these big fights in Vegas, or even like doing when Klitschko and AJ fought right over here in Wembley in front of 90,000 people. I like to think that somewhere there's a kid in a car with his dad who's driving home. He says, "Boy, that was really cool when that guy said, 'Let's get ready to rumble.'"
There's
really
two people in
exciting."
the room who are putting their hand up and saying that was us for sure.
Yeah,
And to me, that would be like and I've heard that, and people say that to me, and they'll say, "Oh, my son was like this," or I'm talking to some 50-year-old guy, and he says, "Oh, when I was a kid, I used to watch it." I'm like, "Thanks a lot, pal," but
Yeah, I'm
still, that is like one of the highest forms of flattery to me, to know that it was exciting for somebody, through the
Inspiring
years.
as well.
Yeah.
as me and Darren both boxers. I don't think there's a boxer out there that didn't dream of becoming a world champion. And I mean, Darren did it, and he was announced by you. But I certainly, becoming a world champion, it would have been, in my dream, would have been Caesar's Palace or Madison Square Garden, and it would have been announced by you.
Yeah.
And that was just part of my dream, and I know every other boxer's dream. That's your achievement.
I really do like that. That happens to me where a young guy will come up to me and I say, I can't wait till, because for the last decade or so, I've just done the main events usually in fights, and for them to say like, someday you're going to introduce me, which means he's going to be in a championship fight, and that really is that's moving. That touches me. I really like that.
Do you understand though? Do you quite get it yourself though?
I thought you were going to bring up something. Do you ever introduce somebody's name and screw it up?
Well, all right, let's jump onto that then. You talk about it is everyone's dream, and it's funny because I didn't take an offence to this whatsoever, because I was such a big underdog against Sergio Martinez. For those who don't know, my first attempt at a world title was in Atlantic City at the Boardwalk Hall against Sergio Martinez, and I had the legend Michael Buffer. And when I found out it was you announcing, that was it. I thought, this is it. I've got to win this fight. I've got to win it. And I did my ring walk. I get in the ring, and it comes to the part where he's announcing his fight. He's done the "Let's get ready to rumble," and then the famous part comes from
Got to bring it up.
From London, England, dazzling Darren Baker. I remember looking at Eddie Hearn and Tony Sims, my trainer, and said, "Ah, man, my one moment."
He's been paid to do that.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because moving forward, obviously, when you talk about trademarks.
One good thing about that, you knew you were getting paid more than me, so that was pretty good.
Well, I don't know. Probably weren't much in it. Probably wasn't much in it.
Not much more, but no, you were. You getting?
But okay. Before I jump onto when you announced me as the winner, which was incredible, was there any other famous mistakes that happened along the way?
Yes.
I think you told me a wrestling one once.
Oh yeah. I don't even want to go there because the wrestling fans, man, they're really hardcore. But it's still the thing with you. That still comes up on Twitter and
yeah, it does.
Yeah, for sure. But I was doing an undercard fight. This is going back maybe 30 years ago. And we're in Texas in San Antonio, and I forget what the main event was. But one of the undercard fights was, and this is common where a guy's building up his record, and some kids, he's 17-0, 15, 16 knockouts. I guess it's like around 130 lightweights, 135 or something. and his opponent was, like 5-8, and just, I mean, obviously an opponent, just another number. The guy's wearing trunks that just looked like they hadn't been washed and all wrinkled, and sneakers instead of boxing. You know. What
Never
I mean,
judge
right?
a book by its
Yeah.
cover.
And it's like, I do the introductions, and I get out, and I'm just like checking out my other notes, and all of a sudden, I'm right at ringside, boom, a body goes down, the crowd roars, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that didn't take long, and what's the time? The timekeeper. I get up, and obviously the guy knocked this poor kid. I don't even look at the fighters. I'm just assuming this guy won. and the winner had 2 minutes, 13 seconds of the very first round by knockout, still undefeated. And I announce it, and this voice behind me says, Mr. Buffer, it's me.
It was the opponent.
It was the kid with the sneakers, and he knocked the guy out.
I said, didn't I? Never judge a book by its cover.
Man. Yeah.
That's
Pardon me,
funny.
ladies and gentlemen, but
What was who was the wrestling one though? I remember you telling me the story. There was a wrestler. Was it not Shawn Michaels? I remember you said one where you.
yeah. Oh,
There was a wrestler, I
a
forgot.
a superstar,
superstar wrestler.
Bret Hart.
Bret, that was it.
Right,
Bret
right.
Hart. Yeah.
And I had written down Clark, and as I'm reading it, I'm saying that's not right, and I'm like Bret, and in my mind I'm saying this, and I'm sort of going. I'm trying not to say Clark.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's just still coming out. Oh man.
Have you watched that one back?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you know, like with the winning? So obviously the winning, you got.
I mean, the guy's a superstar. A superstar.
I mean, one of the biggest, one of
Yes,
the
yes.
biggest ever to come through the
Great
organisation.
guy. And
So we've-
never,
we've-
and he never said a word to me.
He didn't.
Never said a word to me.
We were talking before.
You never said a word to me either.
Well, but then you got it right.
Yeah.
I'll move on to that in a bit.
We were talking about boxing downstairs before we come, and we were saying that the thing you fear is the humiliation of actually losing. It's not about being hurt. I never thought about being hurt. Darren never thought about being hurt, and I suppose when you say you analyze those things and you watch them back and you cringe, there's an element of humiliation for you. Is there, like, how does it feel when you do that? Is that the fear?
Well,
Is that what
yeah,
drives you to make sure you get it right? That you just don't want to feel.
You just want to get it right. Period. I don't think there's anything that drives you. You just know you have to get it right. And but when
what does it mean if you
listen,
don't?
I could name some of the greatest referees you've ever seen in boxing history, and because as a fight fan, I've just seen so many that I can probably name 5 times the guy screwed up, but they're still doing their best, and that's the way it goes. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. I'm still a human being. I'm no different.
Do you still get nervous, or do you get? Did you ever get nervous?
Oh yeah.
So even now, there's still nerves.
No.
No.
But I get anxious. I get excited for like a big fight. Like, oh man, this is really cool. I can't wait to get out of the ring and watch the fight.
And do you think there's an element as well? I'm sure you're a perfectionist and you want to get it. You want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
What was? So you just said like I get excited. What was that? The most excited you've been in the stadium, in the arena?
Oh, I know. Well, look, I'm sitting right here.
Except for Baker.
Dazzling Danny. What's the name again? Whatever. But there's been.
I'd imagine
Quite
Mike
a few
Tyson, but I
really-
don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah. But I mean, AJ and Vladimir. I mean,
That was incredible.
I was there. Yeah.
The ring walks and I remember when they opened the Mirage and they had I think it was Duran and Leonard. The fight was a disaster. They were both past their prime, but the excitement and the energy was pretty exciting. Just there are just great moments where it's like you just love being a part of it. But some fights, you just want to. I'm like, as a fan, I know I want to get the introductions done, do it right, make the crowd pop, have a lot of fun with that. But I want to see the fight.
But to be in the ring, like, you know, we're watching on the TV most of the time when you watch someone like Mike Tyson come out and he hasn't even got any music. He's just got some noise,
That
some
bass
clank,
and the
some
chains,
clanging.
yeah.
And you're in the ring and you're getting like, and they'll come out and I can imagine the energy is just fearful. Like, did you feel that? Did you soak up that intimidation?
You know what, you said something about Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he fought Spinks, he came out to some like crazy
That was it, yeah.
Clanging sort of noise, yeah.
that night. I'll tell you something really funny. But before we went on the air, you have pay-per-view, so I'm going to have to do 3 fights because they want to have the consistency of the same ring announcer. Like, and this is back in 1989 or 90 or something. And Butch Lewis was the promoter for Michael Spinks. And he had like all these little minions that were like, yeah, Butch, I'll get it for you. You know, like they're running around. And so we're about to go on the air, and it was an HBO production. And they're like really fanatical about time and don't waste, and it's got to be, you know, when they go to you. And so we're maybe 60 seconds away from, you know, bringing the first fighters out. And there's a guy in the ring with a tape measure, measuring like from rope to rope, and like, you know, and he's saying, yeah, Butch told me I got to, and actually Trump was actually a guy named Trump. You ever hear of him? He was the promoter of record. Don King was the promoter who was acting like he was the promoter, and Butch Lewis was Michael Spink's promoter. And so this guy is like measuring, and he's bent over. I said, man, you got to get out of the ring. You got to you get this tape up. And he's like, Butch told me, and he starts giving. And I said, oh, okay. And he bent over, so I just put my foot on his arse. I kicked him right through the ropes and onto the table and out of the room. And I turned around and said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to...
That was that fight.
What are you going to do?
That fight.
It's like TV, man. You got to get cracking.
Wow.
So.
At that fight, yeah? That was that fight. Wow.
Well, it was the undercard, you know, that night. I just remember that from that night. It was crazy.
So moving forward onto our little journey together.
Yeah, moving 30 years forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 years after you called me Baker, we're back out to Atlantic City. And
Was that you?
Yeah, that was me. And we talk about dreams and aspirations of having you as an MC. And do you know what? For me, it was never the Let's Get Ready to Rumble that I dreamt of. It was the And the New. That was the part that I dreamt of, where I could pretend to be the world champion. And I was very fortunate enough to have you saying that to me as I won the world title. Was there ever moments when you were announcing the winner that you ever felt bad for the loser? Like, there was a guy that was taking that title away from the champion.
Yeah. No, especially once as the years went by, I would get to know some of these guys coming all the way up.
Yeah.
You know, from when I used to do fights on ESPN. ESPN in the 80s was the #1 show on ESPN before it was this monster ESPN. And we had boxing almost every week somewhere in the country. And I would see guys, you know, go from 4-0 to 5-0 to 6, like, because they were fighting the undercard, 4-round fights, 8-round fights. And I ran Barkley to see him be this blood and guts warrior and have these wars. And he was like 16-2. And so he finally gets a title shot as a total underdog to Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns is just beating the crap out of him, and he knocks Tommy Hearns out. I mean, you know, that's exciting. And then Tommy and I actually got inducted into the Hall of Fame at the same time. That's pretty thrilling, right?
Wow.
But to see, I mean, I had done Tommy's biggest fights, and here it is, and I ran Barkley, who I saw for 10 years progress and
AJ as well, I guess.
So now I have to announce the winner, and that's one of those moments. And new middleweight champion. And the whole time I'm looking at Tommy Hearns sitting there, like, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's you can tear up from the excitement of somebody winning and losing at the same time.
I guess as well, AJ, you did a lot of AJ's earlier fights, and was you the announcer when he lost to Ruiz in MSG?
Yeah. My God.
One of the biggest upsets I remember being in attendance of.
For big super fight atmosphere. And basically, Ruiz was a substitute for Miller, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And this was like, here's this chubby guy who could fight. He really could fight.
Never judge a book by its cover, yeah.
And but here's AJ, this Adonis, this perfect physical specimen. Well, he's just going to kill this guy, and then all of a sudden, that looping, I think it was that left that started it, and you can tell he's disoriented, and
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking because I'm anticipating the next fight at Wembley against somebody, right? Like this is not going to end. This guy's going to fight for the next decade and kill everybody, and then just change the whole everything.
As boxers, like we always, I never reached what Darren did, but I still had the same belts in my eye view that I dreamed to get to. Was there a defined kind of goal for you? Was there something that you were working towards that when you get there, you were kind of a winner or world champion of what you do?
Have you got there?
Yeah, have you got? Is there an end goal, or have you reached it? Like, can you relax now, like Darren does?
I never thought about it like that. It's just, especially the last 20 years. 20 years. It's really been amazing to me that I still think about I can't believe this has happened, and then at the same time I can't believe all that time has gone by, and sometimes I'll look at my calendars and from the past and think like, how did I go from Las Vegas, then I had to go to Moscow, and then I came to London, then back to Moscow again. I'm like, what? How did I do all this? And I realized that for quite a few years, I've really just worked almost every week. It's amazing. And when I wasn't doing that, I've done like 20 movies and national TV commercials in America, and just and here in the UK. And
Yeah.
But like
crazy.
in that early day where you said you flopped as an MC and you had to analyze yourself and how I could get better. Like back then, do you feel like there was, I don't know, maybe being an MC at Madison Square Garden or Caesar's Palace, was there a place that kind of defined, oh, I've made it? Or
that's a box ticked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first time I worked in the Garden, and it was June of '83, and this was like a few months after I finally got that second chance to move on, and all of a sudden I'm at Madison Square Garden. It was Davey Moore and Roberto Duran, sold out Madison Square Garden. I'm like in shock that I'm there.
Wow.
And part of the really most exciting thing was there was a great list. We don't get to do this anymore because the broadcasting takes over everything. But I was going to introduce all the boxers and celebrities at ringside. And in the old days, it used to be you'd introduce that guy with from the Bugs Bunny cartoon. And here at ringside, the former heavyweight champion, and they'd come up and they'd go like this in the middle of the ring, shake hands with each fighter. And so we were going to kind of like do that. And back then it was Ray Mancini and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Larry Holmes and Jerry Cooney and all the big stars of the 70s and early 80s. And Muhammad Ali was there. So what I've always tried to do when I do a celebrity list is save like the biggest star at the end. If we're in Vegas, it's going to be probably like Jack Nicholson if he's there, and then you get the big hand, or Irvin Magic Johnson, and they always try to do a little pecking order. If it's in London and Frank Bruno is there,
oh yeah,
I'll always try to put Frank there because he's such a popular fighter with the fan base, and you want that big pop at the end. Where you're not going to step on it and introduce somebody else. That's got to be. And so I saved Muhammad Ali for the last. And now he was retired then. It's 1983, and it was still when the microphone used to come down back then in the Garden, and it was like a double mic. And I introduced that. I said, and he's known as, and perhaps he really is, the greatest of all times, the 3-time heavyweight champion. And I do this introduction, and place goes nuts. To set this up, though, as these fighters had come into the empty ring, it wasn't like before a fight with fighters in a ring. I said, stay here. Ray Mancini, Marvin Hagler, Jerry Cooney, Larry Holmes, and they're all lined up. And Ali comes up into the ring. The place is going crazy, and he shakes hands with each guy. And they're fighters loved Muhammad Ali because he was, just to see their faces
The charisma
and
of
the
the man,
fans' reaction. That to me was as nervous as I was going into that fight early in my career. That kind of was a big turning point to I think I might do this for a living.
You found it, yeah.
I think this is really something I enjoy, and I loved it from that moment on.
It's like your form of expression. You've really,
I felt as though I felt like I was contributing something to help me. This was all, the promoter didn't tell me to do this. I did this on my own. I had these guys line up and
that
kept
was the
them in
first
the
time
ring.
at Madison Square Garden.
First time at the
Wow.
Garden, yeah.
You're announcing these big fights in what is an individual sport. So we're all individual sportsmen and women. And the mentality, I guess, that's needed is you've got to be competitive. You've got to have that will to win. And you're in there on your own. Are you competitive? Do you have a will to win? Is there an ego that you have?
I have a will to I just to try and be good, and just that's not a matter. I mean, I'm not competing. I'm there just doing my job.
But
and
when
I
you
have
see
to do it, right?
when you see other MCs,
Oh yeah.
do you ever think, nah, I'm better than that guy? I'm better than that guy.
No, you know what? I may have thought I don't consciously remember that, but I do. I have seen guys where I say to myself that guy could be better if he did this
Right.
or that. I'll think that about and I've had because sometimes I'll work with a younger guy doing the undercard, and he'll say, "Is there anything? Could you give me any advice?" And if I can think of something, I will. But usually, I just say just go ahead and just do what you just do what you want to do and have fun. And I'm not. I don't want to say something like, "Well, you should say this," or you should say, because you can't really do that. But
Before we started, you referred to someone in your presence saying that they were the best in the world at doing it, and I can only speak from my own personal, and I'm sure you're the same, Dale. But if somebody in my weight category in the same tournament as me said they're going to win it in my presence, it's on. It would roll me up.
Competing. I mean,
Yeah.
so
I just wonder how it would make you feel, or did make you feel, when someone's sort of referring to themselves as better than you, in your presence.
Yeah, I find it that was. I don't know if the right word is insulting. I just kind of found it to be stupid.
Laughable.
Yeah. But I mean, just like stupid, because it's not. I don't feel as though.
It's just not true.
And, I mean, there's a ring announcer I feel as though is the best, and it's not me, but just really good and never makes mistakes and established and everything, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and I really like the guy, and he's a real gentleman. That's Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Yeah.
I think he's just really, really good. And
He has his tagline.
it comes from a pedigree.
Yeah.
That's and I admire that, because everything he does is an actual homage to his dad.
Right.
And who was a great announcer too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's living that life as well, so it's very important to him. When you look back, I guess at the last two here, the reflection of your career, it must fill you with so much pride and joy. And what do you think your legacy has been? Two questions for you there. As the greatest ever ring announcer, will there be an announcer?
I'm the greatest of all time.
No, but I know it must be hard because you are modest. I've spent a lot of time with you, and you are a modest man. You've got some of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my life. You're great to be around, but you are modest for someone that is so well established and well sought after and thought after. But do you think there'll be another Michael Buffer who has announced so many big fights? Will boxing be as great as it's been in the past? You know, you've been part of something so special. Will there be another Michael Buffer?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say.
That's
And
a no.
I say that.
That's a no.
That's a classy no.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a matter of humility. I mean, I don't want to.
You don't want to beat your chest about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be. See, you've got to remember one thing. Before I started announcing, almost all, not all, but almost all ring announcers were local guys because it was, it wasn't a way. Nobody made a living at it. It was just some the guys that probably loved the sport or had connections or were friends of the commission. I remember when I first tried to get a license in New Jersey, I was told that, well, if you don't have a job, I wanted to get a license and then try to go to promoters and say, try me out or whatever way. I was told by the commission, well, if you're not hired by a promoter, you don't even bother. We got a guy doing that, or that it just was like. It's our pal, or in Pennsylvania the same thing. I was told now the commission they appointed their pals to be ring announcers and pick up $50, $100, whatever it was. So it's just crazy. So I started doing these fights. They were on network TV. Then the network asked the top rank, could we'll give you some extra money if you bring Michael Buffer to Indiana and to New Orleans and to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I started getting more and more exposure, and it just led to a lot of different things. It's not like I created the job of a ring announcer, but I became the regular ring announcer that people were always seeing.
Star.
So it's crazy.
I remember it's funny. I asked you a story once because I think I asked you a question. Sorry, about how many air miles have you done? And I think you said, "Oh man," because I've got 1 million on this airline. I've got 1 million on this airline. You must have done some serious traveling.
Yeah, I really did a lot of traveling. Yeah.
Well, actually, I said off air, didn't I? I asked you where you go for vacation. I've been everywhere.
Yeah,
I've been everywhere. I stay at home.
We're almost everywhere in Italy, and so just places that are just I never dreamed of. When I was a kid, nobody in America ever thought that they'd ever see the Forbidden City in Beijing. We couldn't go, or Russia. I mean, the Iron Curtain and the Communist Chinese and all these political things that's never going to. And here I've worked in these places and spent, time there and seen all these things.
Yeah. Do you always make sure that you go and feel the place rather than just go work and fly?
Yeah. Especially
an obscure place or something.
When I take Christine with me and we just take advantage of these trips and travel a lot. It was great.
Amazing.
It was exciting.
Darren, I did ask you, but I didn't quite get the answer. What would you like your legacy to be? Or how do people remember you? If there's something written on the headstone, what is it that people remember?
It's got to be "Let's get ready to rumble." That's got to be on there.
Written on the headstone.
Yeah, let's get ready to rumble.
This guy has me dead.
It shakes.
You just killed me, man. Legacy. It just, it's YouTube is there, and it's, it's just somebody will be able to look at really something from 30 years ago and say, well, that guy's not that good. At least that's what I would look at and say. And then maybe from 10 years ago say, oh, that's pretty good if they didn't see So there's a whole series of Michael Buffers growth and getting
Yeah.
better and trying to get better.
You certainly set the bar high, and I think that comes from like, even though you're very modest with it, like there's obviously a lot of self-analysis that's gone in there to perfect what you're doing.
Yeah,
a
lot of great
create.
moments. And like I say, I still will look at something and change something and want to, And then there's little things that drive me crazy, and that's when other ring announcers completely steal like one of my bits. Like I'll come up, like I started doing something a few years ago when a fighter is undefeated and a perfect record, no draws, right? And so I started using a phrase that nobody else used before, where I would say, he has 22 fights, 22 victories, 10 wins by knockout, the undefeated. And so when I see just that little phraseology being used, it's like, that's my bit, that sort of
there's
thing.
that competitiveness.
Yeah. Well, it's not just competitive, it's pride.
Pride, yeah.
It's like,
However you dress it up.
when you come up with a phrase and then somebody else uses it,
Am I right that you actually said it's Showtime first?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
And you didn't.
But I did it wasn't. I didn't invent that. That was Showtime. I mean, Showtime.
Showtime. Yeah.
They came to me and said, could you say
this.
Actually, the very first time it was like, it's boxing. It's Showtime. And then I would say, let's get ready to rumble. But that was David Denkins, the producer. He's still with him now. And the late Jay Larkin. Did you ever meet Jay Larkin?
No, I never met him.
For Showtime. Yeah,
No.
great guy, and passed away too young. And that was their baby. That was their idea. And so then when Jimmy Lennon started doing fights on Showtime,
You became the person that said that.
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
You've achieved so much. You're going to go down as the greatest ever. But you're here in London.
What do you want? How can I comment to that? I'm trying to be
just
humble
soak it
here.
up, just soak it up.
And
we're just feeding your ego, Michael. But you're here actually announcing. But what is, not specifically, but what next? What are there more goals? Are there more dreams? Are there more ambitions for you?
there is one. There is actually one. It's not going to happen because it's gotten beyond, and it's hard to get input into it. But I have done a lot of Stanley Cup playoffs, championships, NBA playoffs and championships and home openers, Major League Baseball World Series playoff games. We're talking about and of course in the NFL, I've done a lot of different teams. The opening, where Rams fans, are you ready? Place goes nuts. I love doing those big stadiums and all that. But I've done in the NFL, I've done playoff games and conference championships, but I've never done the Super Bowl.
Never done.
Oh, really?
Right, we've got to make that happen.
I've done every major sports championship there is, in America.
You've never done the Super Bowl.
Never did the
right,
Super
we've
Bowl.
got to make this happen. Michael Buffer has to announce the Super Bowl. When this goes out, we've got
Just the opening.
But
Just the opening kick.
That's our goal now.
Yeah.
That is our goal. We've got to make that happen for Michael Buffer.
Yeah, well, good luck. Because when the NFL comes in and they take over, and it's like there's a certain thing when it gets to certain levels in advertising and commercials and events and this and that, you have people that are like running the show, and they're geniuses. I mean, I've done the Academy Awards and the Grammys, and I've done it. But they're geniuses because if they didn't think of it, it ain't no good. So you can't go and say, hey, just before the kickoff, why don't you have me say, the teams are ready, the players are ready. Are you ready? And they go, and let's get ready to rumble, and they kick the ball up. Well, if they didn't think of that, so you just got to hope somebody has that idea.
Well,
It is.
we're pushing it.
I'm friendly with a lot of producers and things, and somebody had pitched like the top guy that makes a decision. This is like 20 years ago. And he said, listen, Michael's introduced the World Series and the Stanley Cup and the NBA championship finals and everything. And a guy says, from the NFL said, yeah, well, he's done all that. So we don't, he's done that. We don't want that to happen here. That's like, it just didn't, it was like a negative thing to him. So, and now it's a committee of geniuses. So it's, But it's still a pretty good game, except my Eagles lost the last one.
Well, I think. I mean, that's perfect for my part. I mean, unless you've got any more questions.
I just. I mean, one last thing. You're a legend. You're a class act. It's been lovely being in your company. The whole point of this podcast, the name of it is Why Fight. We wanted to get into the reason behind the push that became Michael Buffer that we all know. What would you say to anyone out there that's pushing in their division, in their discipline, in their field, whatever they're doing? Why bother? Why fight?
If you're doing something you love or like a lot, or you feel as though this is your thing, I mean, I always look at it this way. I just imagine you have a thing called rush hour in every major city and everything, and you got people, probably half the people in their cars driving to work hate their jobs, can't get it and can't change it. Whether it's in America, a lot of people just keep their job because they have to have insurance because their kid has diabetes, or they, just all these like crazy reasons for they can't go from another job, or they could have another offer, but it's they can't make the change because there's a. But if you're doing something you really love, you like, you feel good going to the gym every day to train if you're going to be a fighter. You feel good knowing that, you've been a judge or a referee or you're an announcer in a sport or a football player, and you're not making a lot of money, but you love what you're doing. I mean, nothing beats that. Really, just think of all the people that hate what they do for a living and can't even change it, and it's not going to change.
So that's the fight. Find the thing you love.
Find the thing you love, and if you're doing it, man, you've struck gold. And it's not even a matter if you're going to be super successful at it. I mean, look, Darren, you've known guys that are never going to be champions.
One over it.
You're a champion.
But seriously, but they still love what they're doing. They love going to the gym.
Yeah.
They love competing. They maybe when the time runs out, they're going to be trainers. They're going to be involved. They're doing what they love. You can't beat that. Really.
I think a few more episodes of Ryan working with me, and he'll hate his job, unfortunately. But I think 100% thing is for certain. We both thoroughly enjoyed your company, Michael. You've been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
For coming on.
It's been an honour.
Now, do you forgive me for introducing you as a baker?
You're forgiven.
I love you, brother.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Michael.